Hello and welcome to this video. We are doing 11th grade biology. This is Preetinder Kaur, and if you want to catch more videos on biology, you can visit this website perfect-scores.com, and don't forget to share and like us at Facebook. And if you have any suggestions or any kind of queries or requests, you can mail us at perfectscores89@gmail.com. So the topic that we are doing right now is classification. And probably just before this video, you might have watched another video on classification in the plant kingdom. So we know there are 5 kingdoms. We have Monera, Protista, then we've got the plant kingdom, the fungi kingdom, and the animal kingdom. Now in the plant kingdom, we have 5 further types. We discussed about algae, we discussed about bryophytes and pteridophytes in the previous videos. And in this video, we are going to focus on gymnosperms. And if time permits, we are also going to focus on angiosperms. So these are the 5 subcategories into which the plant kingdom can be divided. So we've already done algae, which is the most basic form of all plants, and then bryophytes and pteridophytes. So all the liverworts and mosses, again bryophytes, all that we have done. The next thing that we have to do is gymnosperms. So, what exactly do you mean by a gymnosperm? Gymnosperm comes from 2 different words. Gymno means naked, that means without a cover, and sperm basically means seed. So, it means and it refers to plants in which the ovule is not enclosed by any ovary wall. So, there is no ovary wall around the ovule. That is the basic meaning of gymnosperm. And as a result, the ovules are very open and they're exposed even before and after fertilization. So as a result, they are exposed before and after the fertilization has taken place. So that is what sums up the word gymnosperms. Because the seeds that develop after fertilization, they are not covered. So they are naked seeds, gymnosperms. Now gymnosperms are not really only small plants. They can even include medium-sized trees or even tall trees and shrubs. One example of a very famous gymnosperm is the sequoia. That is one of the tallest tree species. In fact, the tallest tree in the world is also of a sequoia species. It's a redwood tree. The roots of gymnosperms are usually taproots. Taproots means a single thick root below the ground with a few fibers. And if you remember, fibrous roots were like this. Lots of fibers. But in case of gymnosperms, usually you are going to find taproots. Now some kinds of plants have roots that they also are associated with different kinds of fungus. For example, mycorrhiza. Okay, that is associated with pine trees, while in some special roots called coralloid roots are present. They are associated with nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria. Now, what about the stems of these gymnosperms? The stems are of 2 types. They can either be branched, for example in Pinus, or they can be unbranched as well. For example in the Cycas. The leaves, they can be either simple or they can be compound leaves. So as you can see, there's a lot of variety in gymnosperms. The only thing common is the naked seed. Because there's no ovary wall around the ovule, it's exposed before and after at all times during the fertilization. Taproots are there usually. Sometimes mycorrhiza and coralloid can also be there. And stems can be either branched or unbranched. Leaves can either be simple or compound. So let's go ahead and discuss a few more characteristics of gymnosperms. Now one thing you need to know is that leaves in gymnosperms, they are well adapted to withstand extreme conditions of climate. So the leaves are well adapted. Humidity, temperature, wind, all these adaptations are there. And sometimes in conifers, you have needle-like leaves that reduce the surface area. And when the surface area is reduced, the moisture loss is less, so they're able to survive for long periods of time without a moisture as well, without any kind of moisture or with not so much of water loss. So conifers that you can find on mountain slopes is an example. Additionally, if you see conifers, they have leaves in this form. So that means if snow falls on them, it can easily slide down. So that is one more adaptation. Apart from that, the cuticle is also thick and that prevents moisture loss, and the stomata are also sunken deep inside. They're just not on the exposed surface, but rather they are deep inside the leaf. Now coming to the reproduction of gymnosperms. Gymnosperms are known to be heterosporous. That means they produce different kinds of spores. Both the spores, that is the male and the female, they are not similar to each other. There are two kinds of spores. One is haploid microspores, and the other one is megaspores. As the name suggests, you can easily find out which one is going to be bigger. It's going to be the megaspores. Now, both of them are produced within sporangia. And these sporangia are there on the top of sporophylls, just like in case of bryophytes. And they are arranged spirally along an axis, or they can easily be in the form of cones as well. Now the cones or the strobili, now these are present in the form of cones, which are also known as strobili. Now these strobili, they bear the microsporophylls for the microspores, microsporophylls for the microspores, and microsporangia. Now these ones contain the small spores and they give rise to the male strobili. So here you get the information that the microspores are basically the male spores. Now what happens to these microspores is they develop into a male gametophyte generation, means a very big group of gametophytes. But it's not very big also, but it is a group and only limited number of cells are there, and after that it gets reduced, and that production is called a pollen grain. That grain has a few of these male gametophytes. Now this development is all within the microsporangia. On the other hand, the cones that bear the megasporophylls with ovules or megasporangia, they are called the female strobili. So that again confirms that the megaspores are nothing but the female gametes. The male or the female cones or strobili, they can be either on the same tree, for example in Pinus, or it can be on different trees also, for example in Cycas. Now the megaspore mother cell is different from one of the cells of the nucellus. So the whole structure is called an ovule, and within that you have the cells of the nucellus, which is the outer layer, plus the main megaspore mother cell. So that is the composition of the ovule. It has the megaspore mother cell plus the other cells of the nucellus. Now the mother cell, it divides through meiosis to form 4 megaspores. That means the bigger ones, the female spores, and one of them gets enclosed within the megasporangium and it develops into the female gametophyte. Out of 4, only one develops into the gametophyte. And this further develops into the archegonia. It can have one archegonia or the female sex organ, or it can have two as well, two or more as well. So that's how the reproduction takes place. Let's just quickly summarize. So we know that in gymnosperms, heterospores are there. That means the male and the female spores are not similar to each other. The male ones are microspores. They are smaller in size and they give rise to the male gametophytes, which are then reduced into a pollen grain that develops within the microsporangia. Now we did that all these spores are found within the sporangia. So you will have microsporangia for the male and a megasporangia for the female. And these sporangia are found on sporophylls. They can be in the form of cones or strobili. So when you come to the micro ones, which are belonging to the male gametophyte, those are called microsporophylls or microsporangia. Similarly, for the female, you're going to have megasporophylls or megasporangia. So that gives rise to the male strobili and the female strobili. So that is how the male microspores are formed into a pollen grain. What about the females? In females, you have megaspores. So one megaspore mother cell is surrounded by other cells of the nucellus, and that forms the ovule. After that, it gives rise to 4 megaspores, out of which only one develops into the gametophyte, and that gives rise to further archegonium. It could be 2 or more as well. But how actually does this entire process take place physically or in the environment? So let's have a look at that. Now, just in case of bryophytes and pteridophytes, it happens that gametophytes have a separate free living existence in the form of little buds that can grow independently of the main plant. But in gymnosperms, the male and the female gametophytes do not have independent free living existence. So gametophytes do not have a free living existence. That means they have to depend on the mother plant or the father plant or the main plant to survive. So where do they actually live? They live within the sporangia till they develop. So the megasporangia for the female gametophyte and the microsporangia for the male. So what happens is that the pollen grain is released from the microsporangium. That is the first step. The pollen grain is released from the microsporangium. That is going to be the first step. After this, it is carried and comes in contact with the opening of the ovules. Now, I hope you remember where will these ovules be. They are going to be in the megasporangia, which are located on the megasporophylls. That is the second step. And remember, mega is for female in gymnosperms and micro is for the males in gymnosperms. Okay, that is the second step. The next thing is that the pollen tube carries the male gamete towards the archegonia. So that is there. That is the step, and after that they discharge the contents near the mouth. So they are carried and they discharge the contents. That is step 3. After fertilization, the zygote is formed. Now zygote develops into the embryo, and the ovules, they develop into seeds. And these seeds, by now you might have known that these seeds are not covered, and that is the reason why those plants are called gymnosperms or naked seeds. So that is roughly the way in which these kinds of plants, they reproduce and they form more of their own type. So that is pretty much all that you need to know about gymnosperms right now. The only thing that you need to remember is this part, that megagametes or the megaspores are from the female side, and the microspores, the microgametophytes, they are from the male, and because they are dissimilar, they are known as heterosporous organisms. So that is all about gymnosperms that is covered in this video, and the next video is going to be based on angiosperms. So thank you so much for watching this video.